All right, everyone, if you are seeing us, that means that we are coming through to you live for Association Chat. And so what I want to do is I want to get an idea of who's out there and that you can hear us. This is a quick tech check just so that we don't get too far down the road and find out later that you didn't hear all of the wonderful things we were talking about. So if I can just get someone to either write in the chat box here on Crowdcast or write in live on Facebook. Facebook has a little bit of a delay, so just let me know that you can hear us and that everything is okay. Waiting. You're on Crowdcast, you hear and see us. That's wonderful. Thank you, Diane. I appreciate it. All right, so I want to go ahead and jump into this. This has been an amazingly, just a strange, challenging day. As I'm sure most of you who are active in the association community understand, we wear many hats and sometimes our personal lives impede on us making progress. For me, today, that happened, and I ended up spending time in the ER, but I'm okay, and I'm here with you. And so our originally scheduled programming was delayed just a bit, but here we are, and I am so happy that all of you have been able to make it. So welcome to Association Chat, your weekly online discussion for the association community, where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to this online home for the community. I'm the host of the chat, Kiki L'Italienne, and I'm here live with Omer Soker. He is the author of The Future of Associations, Disruption, Innovation, this book, which is, he sent this to me, you sent this to me a while back, right?
Yeah,
it was like a few months ago. It was, he sent it to me, very kind, to send it to me all the way from Australia. And I was able to go through it. And I was taken by the fact that he was talking about the six-step roadmap, which is really looking at the way that association executives can lead their teams, can lead their organizations into the future in a way that is successful, in a way that is innovative. And so he is here with us today. Omer, you are here with us today to talk with us a little bit about this roadmap and the future of association. So welcome so much. Welcome to you to Association Chat.
Oh, thank you very much. And greetings to everyone from Sydney, Australia. And firstly, Kiki, you're amazing. I mean, like a few minutes ago, you were in hospital, and now you're doing a live show.
I was there.
This is what I love. It is crazy, but it's what I love about America. You guys have such a get up and go attitude. You can just do stuff and accomplish things. And I love the enthusiasm. I love your resilience. And we need a bit more of that in Australia. So, well done you, just even for being here today. And the time thing worked for me because it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I was up at 4 trying to get my brain in gear for a 6 a.m. chat. So an 8 a.m. chat for me is a lot easier. So
sorry, I think that my connection was a little bit disturbed there. So
okay,
sorry about that. But thank you for saying. The last thing I heard was something about not giving up, being in America and forging ahead. So yes.
Yeah, it's a really great American trait. So well done you, and take care. Make sure you go and have a rest after this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am too. I survived. And you know what? I feel even more on fire to talk about this topic today.
Yeah.
So could you talk to us a little bit about what got you into looking at the future of associations? What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, well, my inspiration came from my own journey. I moved from the corporate world into an association as a CEO, and we had a number of challenges. There was a member action group that was out there in the market, taking ads in the trade press, stating what sort of changes that they wanted. Had a bit of a where we have a big trade event, and the venue threatened to not only not give us the space, but give it to our direct competitor. Then we had all the other challenges of diminishing membership numbers, which we had to stabilize and increase, digitization, help the president reform the constitution and governance. So we went through a whole gamut of stuff. And I thought, there's nothing here to help us. I've been in the corporate world, and you've got, New York, London, Paris offices helping you. Associations, I think, often have to think by themselves. So I thought, gosh, I need to actually get out and put out for Australia and the greater market, and to really do something to help. And I think I'm driven by that passion to actually make a difference and make a contribution. So the book was my contribution. It was also my journey as well, as to, the stuff that we could do to become more progressive. And I think, we were chatting about this American get up and go-ness. I think there isn't quite as much of that in Australia, and I wanted something progressive and forward-thinking to help associations kind of move forward, because disruption is everywhere, and I think the challenges of the market are just going to get greater and greater. So to kind of get some thinking together is, I think, in everyone's benefit. And so I thought, if my book makes a little bit of difference to a handful of associations, I'm already pleased and happy. And then, the opportunity to chat with you across the world is fantastic, because it's just about information sharing. So I guess that's my reason for putting the book out.
Well, yeah, and I think that I love your message. I think that in the association space, and really anywhere, because associations touch every industry, that looking at disruption, looking at the ways that we can guide our organizations into the future, taking into account that we're living in a time of massive change, and as technology progresses, that we have to figure out how to add that into all of our planning. You could have all the leadership skills that you've learned from, some great business minds in the space, but what happens when your industry is facing this disruption and things aren't what they used to be, right? So you have this 6-step roadmap that you've put together as a way to guide people. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe kick off what went into this 6-step roadmap? Because you don't just automatically think, okay, here are the 6 things you need to do, and you had to figure out which of these things were the keys to leading association executives forward. So why don't you tell me a little bit about putting those 6 steps together?
Okay, cool. Well, I think the first thing that's integral to associations is how we respond to disruption. And there's an interesting quote. Back in 1898, the US Commissioner of Patents said that everything that can be invented has been invented. This was in 1898. I mean, you look at what's happened since then, and you look at what's happened in the last couple of years, how crazy was that? So, so I think the first premise is how we respond to disruption. And the survey we did in Australia, which seems to be similar globally. I've spoken to a few people at the the American Society of Association Executives, and it's 100% of associations said they were being disrupted. I mean, 100%. So you'd imagine that 100% innovating, but in the same survey, 72% rate innovation as poor or mediocre. So for me, that says that 3/4 of associations are stuck. There's disruption, but they don't really know how to move ahead. So I created a framework which I call the 6-step roadmap. It's kind of a holistic framework, and you can start wherever you want, but you take disruption as the first entity. I think associations must evolve and develop to remain relevant into the future, to tackle the disruption. That's kind of step number 1. Step 2 is mission and vision, because if there is disruption in the markets, well, how can our existing mission and vision still be relevant? How can it still be so current? So the question is, when was the last time we rediscussed our mission and vision and our objectives, and to get clarity in what that looks like through disruption? Step 3 is the governance, which is really the way that an association can achieve these objectives, because without good governance, there's no hope of achieving those mission goals. So 1, 2, 3. 4 is our external strategy, and I think this is predominantly 3 areas. Membership, growing and engaging members, growing income and revenue, but also market impact, which is advocacy. And I think a business-like approach for that. Step 4 is the internal alignment, because the resources, the systems, and the staff are not aligned with the external strategy. If the external strategy is not aligned with the mission, it's all going to come to a heap there. So there are 5 steps there, and then the 6th one is, once all of those are in place, working towards a seamless progress going forward, then you can open up a little bit of space and opportunity to think about the future, the horizon. You know, what does the future, what do we need to develop and grow for the future? And again, the cycle repeats. And I think you can start anywhere in the cycle. You can start in the area that's most where you can see the greatest benefit or the biggest challenges. So they all link in. And again, I have 6 premises for each of those ones. So very quickly running through them. In terms of disruption, you must change and develop. Mission and vision, absolute clarity of mission to engage members. On governance, I don't think you can be a modern association without a contemporary board. For external strategy, a more business-like approach is required to succeed. Internally, I think we can look inward for a lot of our problems and challenges. And for the future is what we make it. The future is dependent on the decisions we make today. So, gosh, that's like a 2-minute précis of something that's really a holistic roadmap for the way forward. But I hope it just gives you just a little taste of how I see associations responding to disruption and moving forward.
Well, it does. And what I'm thinking is that, you know, everybody loves a framework. Everybody loves this idea that there's a roadmap that's leading them. If they follow these steps, that they're going to be fine. But we all know that in real life, you know, that there are hangups all along the way. And one of the things you talk about in your book is you talk about when things do go wrong. Things will go wrong. You could try to be perfect, and something's going to happen. So how do you manage things when that inevitably happens? And so I'm not sure what kind of things that you run into with your clients or in your own experience in the past, as far as what things you can most often predict might go wrong. But if you could talk a little bit about sort of managing when things do go wrong, and maybe, you know, touching on this framework, but understanding how to lead in a time of crisis.
Sure. Well, I think things will go wrong, can go wrong, and I think this is just part of not only the human condition, it's part of business, it's part of the association framework, and I think it's unrealistic to expect that it's not going to happen. I think one of the challenges there is this perfection expectation is quite dangerous, because when we try to live up to an expectation of perfection, you know, that we are our association is perfect, we've got all the answers, that actually negates the truth of what's really happening. So I think that's quite a dangerous perspective. So I think it's letting go of that expectation that we are perfect. And I sum it up in terms of position themselves for the future, and I think it's quite integral. So if I could maybe just give a little bit of a background to that, I think when associations were first formed, they were created. It was like the central hub, central nucleus around which markets could cooperate. And you know, back in 1898 or the 1900s, it was the hub of those markets. But that hub and spoke model has changed. A kind of a digital economy. There is no center. There is no hub. So there's no single organization that is essential anymore. So everyone is really dispensable. So take the largest association in the US. If it disappeared, what would happen? Well, a whole bunch of competitors would come in. I mean, you know, all of our guests that are listening, your associations, you know, if you disappeared, what would happen? The members would carry on in some shape or form. So I think it's that acceptance of vulnerability that, you know, disruption is here. We are not permanent entities unless we innovate. So it's that accepting of vulnerability, or accepting that there is a problem, that therefore we need to change, therefore we need to have a transformation agenda that keeps us going forward. But also when problems come along the way, expect them. There's going to be problems. It's going to be, it's like, okay, this is just a little bump in the roadmap. And it's okay if we stop pretending we are perfect. We start to notice those issues, and we can actually start to try and address them. And I think it's not about having all the answers. You know, I think what members want is they want truth, clarity, and confidence. So for an association to be able to say, "Oh wow, look, gosh, we've got this big bump in the existential threat. This is the threat. This is what we're thinking about doing about it. You know, we're going to tackle it for you." I reckon members will say, "Well, good on you for being honest and dealing with it rather than pretending it's not there." And when associations or organizations step up and have the confidence to be to accept that they're not impenetrable, members will step up and help, because this is a collaborative approach. And suddenly it was like, oh my gosh, these guys they're genuine, they're on our side, they're really trying to do something for us. Let's help them. Let's come together. And then you get this wisdom of the crowds working. And again, you know, it's that old adage of problem shared is a problem halved. So I think it's that sense of, okay, let's stop pretending we're perfect, because that's just not real. Let's kind of face these challenges, take a deep breath and kind of go, you know what? I don't have the full answer for this, but we'll take the first step, and then the second step will come because we'll be working together. So that's I think.
Oh, no. Sorry. So I saw Jed says, yeah, we're not permanent for sure. And yeah, we're definitely not, nor are we perfect. And I can bet that I'm thinking about a few of the people who usually tune in here on Crowdcast. I know them, I talk with them, and I can imagine that they're saying right now, oh man, I know I'm not perfect, but now what, right? Now what? And so you have the 6-step roadmap, but let me put it to you like this. A lot of times, because there is so much change, it's a moving target. There's tech disruption. Your IT department is pushing, you know, your CIO is pushing for you to upgrade your systems to get better privacy. There's the GDPR that's heading your way, and you better be in compliance in May. And then on the other side, if you're not worried about data privacy, then which you should be, on the other side, then you have your like management, leadership stuff. How are we leading the entire industry through our association into the future? So what are the changes we need to make that way? In the meantime, I mean, you see, you know, it just mounts and mounts and mounts, and it's like, okay, the changing role of associations in the world. A lot of people look to more and more for-profit companies competing with associations on everything from education to conferences and meetings. So with all of that, you have the 6-step roadmap. But if I'm an association executive, I'm the CEO, the executive director, and I come to you and I say, look, I love what you're talking about here, but I'm scratching my head because I don't know where to begin. What would you tell me?
Okay. Well, what I would say, first of all, I would acknowledge the fact that being an association CEO is really hard. I think it's much harder than being a corporate CEO. Corporate CEO has got one agenda. It's pretty much shareholder value. We've got 5, 6, 7. So it's very difficult. I think when it comes to, and I don't want these answers to sound pat or patronizing, because they're really difficult things to get a grip on. So I don't think there's a silver bullet. But I think if there's one thing that would help, I think it absolutely comes back to the mission and vision. When I look at a lot of associations, more so in Australia, I see mission statements. I see kind of like so value. You know, we are the peak body. We are the leading association for this. We help our members. It's like, yeah, but come on, be specific. Some real specifics. And I think, and this is hard, you know, hard stuff. But if an association get really specific about, okay, why do you exist? Or why do you get up in the morning? You know, what is the purpose? What are you really trying to do? If we can get really clear on those 3 or 4 mission objectives, everything should tie back into that. And then it becomes a way of prioritizing. So all these issues that come around, you know, they must all link to mission and vision.
Right.
On the mission and vision, we can kind of say, okay, these 5 things that are happening over here, they're kind of a little bit ancillary. They're not really directly impact that. How can I prioritize the things that will deliver me the best input for achieving those goals? And I think it comes down to potential improvement points. Okay, and the way that I've often prioritized before is, okay, how effective will this be if we get a result? How much time, effort is required to do so? What is the likelihood of success? So those are three benchmarks I use to try and prioritize initiatives and put them into an order.
Okay, so can you just repeat that again? Because I really think that people need to pay attention to that. So
okay,
the three things, your checklist of three that you go through to see if something's really a priority.
Okay, cool. So the first one is how important is it? Okay,
how important is it?
How important is it when it's done? What will the impact be on mission and vision? Will it have a big impact? Will it have a medium impact? Will it have a negative impact? So how important is it? So obviously importance goes up. Second one is kind of like how easy is it? Oh, easy is a terrible word, but how can it be developed effectively? Does it need time, resources? If it's going to take resources that are way out of your capability, well, that's going to put a dampener on things. So you look at the time and investment required for that result, you can actually help balance that one. And then the third one is, what's the likelihood? If you've got a 1 in a million chance, you may put it a little bit down the scale. So I think those three kind of help us, because we're all human, we all make mistakes, we're all frail. So that kind of helps to put them into some kind of priority order. So, I mean, certainly for me, if I can put things into a priority order, I'll feel a little less stressed about trying to do everything today. So that's my priority thing, So
I love that. That's such a great methodology for figuring out what you need to pay the most attention to, because I do feel like, and I feel kind of partially responsible. Recently, I was at a conference and a local event, and it was, I was leading a discussion on the EU data privacy laws, and that, it's easy to get scared and get people stirred up about it. And on the one hand, they do need to be stirred up. They do need to be able to back up what they're doing and talk about understanding the regulations and being in compliance for everyone's benefit, right? But on the other hand, when you walk into any discussion, you need to have a firm idea, I feel, of what you really need to accomplish next, that list of priorities, because if you are trying to accomplish too much, you won't accomplish anything. It'll take you forever. So, so we've got our framework, we've got your methodology for figuring out what should be a priority. What are probably the biggest issues that you run into the most often, like out of all of these different areas where you see association executives needing really to usually really focus in and zero in on these areas, because it's the area that you see most often needs the most attention. Are there any trends? Do you see, are any of these things, the problems or the solutions that you see that need to be applied most often?
Yeah, definitely. Can I actually answer one question prior before I tackle that one? And that was all the stuff that's on the plate of associations. I think associations sometimes try to do too much. And when you look at the list of services, sometimes I see a shopping list of stuff. It's like 47 things.
Yes.
Like, really?
Yes.
You do all those? How do you do? It's like I was pick two or three. Pick 2 or 3 are most important for members. So I think sometimes associations can overburden themselves with too much stuff, almost to create value. Sometimes less is more. Just do the 3 or 4 things that are absolutely critical for members of markets, because all the other stuff is an opportunity cost. It takes time and resources. So I think they can simplify. Simplify is hard, and it's kind of scary because it's also challenging value proposition. It's like, okay, right, what's your value proposition? And you're like, well, I don't have one, so I'll give you 25 things that I do. It's like, no, don't do that. So I think we can actually help and simplify things. You can learn from the corporate world in some aspects from that one. So I think that's one. I'm sorry? So,
no, I was just going to say, I think that's a really good one. And I can already feel in me this like desire to like push back on that and be like, well, yes, but look at Amazon and they're doing everything, and it's like, I can hear the pushing back in my imagination and both inside. But I also know that, you know, when you're trying to do too much, most associations are usually smaller associations where they have a limited number of resources as far as the people on deck who can actually help them to achieve what they're trying to achieve. So even with the help that we're getting from technology, we can't, you know, you're saying maybe the need is to have a greater focus and maybe not try to be all things to all people.
Yeah, and I think members will applaud that. Sometimes I see small and medium associate, and like small and medium in Australia is like tiny for America. Our large association is one of your small ones. You know, I see some really tiny stuff. So there's some like with under $1 million of turnover. Macroeconomic goals that they want to influence government. You go, really? How are you going to do that? You're tiny. So I think it will be much better to just be real, because otherwise members are kind of going, you know, you really going to? I don't think so. So I think they can see through the spin. So simplify is good. I should probably answer the question you asked me earlier, which is about the trends.
I love that you can keep track. By the way, I tend to pepper people with questions, and sometimes they get lost along the way. So thank you.
No. Well, the whole thing is, you know, with the 6-step roadmap, everything aligns. Nothing exists in isolation. So it's all kind of comes together as a whole. So in terms of trends, I mean, we looked at through the survey that we did with associations, and that was across 60 different categories. It's very similar, and some of the biggest challenges. Well, okay, for Australia, the biggest one was insufficient resources. Okay, but you know, there's two questions there. You know, do insufficient resources prohibit an association from innovating, or the other question is, do they have insufficient resources because maybe they haven't innovated enough in terms of business development? So it's the second one is much more empowering. The other ones were fundamentally internal. It was about resistance to change, which is about culture, and board capability. And those two are actually catch-22s. If you think about board capability, you know, how do you grow an association? And I don't just mean financially, but in terms of market impact, if the board capability is not quite up there. So it's a kind of a catch-22. And I think the board itself, everything starts from the board. The board really needs to be the catalyst for the growth. And it's sometimes quite scary if you're sitting there going, well, you know, we don't know what we don't know. It's the Johari window. So I think there's a lot of work needs to be done in terms of governance. In Australia, there's a lot of conversation around that. I like that there was a McKinsey report, I think maybe a year or two ago, and I know this was across non-profits and corporates. They rated 3 types of boards. One was ineffective, which speaks for itself, complacent, and striving. So I think they had 37 different metrics. Now, the interesting thing was the complacent board, I think, performed 3 out of those 37 tasks well, yet they thought that they were overachieving. They thought that they were doing so much better. Whereas the striving board, which had, you know, good skill sets, good diversity, open trust, you know, assertive debate, and an ambitious chair, I think they were delivering 30 out of the 37. But the striving boards thought that the thought they were doing much better. So this comes down to governance education, and, you know, letting us understand that there's maybe more that they could achieve without it becoming a threatening thing, or without it becoming judgmental, but just more as a, you know, to move the association forward, we need to do these things. So that's one. Similarly with resistance to change, if we're talking about innovation, you know, you could invent the fantastic new product, but that's not going to happen if your culture prohibits it. So I think a lot of work needs to be done in terms of getting associations comfortable with change. I mean, it's scary, but I think we all need to move forward and embrace change. So this is about a cultural change.
I was just gonna say, I like that's definitely a drum that I beat on quite a bit, because I feel like in order to grow, a lot of associations, they can take a look at what some innovative technology companies are doing, and having like a skunk works, having some kind of thing, and incubators where they are able to actually, yes, test and innovate and try new things and experiment and use some of the great resources that they have at their disposal, which a lot of times the resources that associations have are access to thought leaders, are access to people who are wanting to give back and grow the industry in a way that is not just completely focused on profit, but is in a way that is looking at pushing forward, whatever it is that they're trying to do. Professional societies, scientific organizations are looking for ways to move that forward. And a lot of times in that mission statement, they have something about disseminating knowledge or disseminating information to the public. And I think that there's definitely an argument for having some sort of way, some, specific area where they're able to constantly work on this idea of developing new ideas. There's definitely an argument for why that would be part of their mission.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think you hit the nail on the head. One thing I believe kind of scares people about innovation is you say the word innovation, and suddenly we think of, who do we think of? We think of Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. We have to go to Mars. Well, how do I do that? Right. And then we doubt ourselves because we're not. We're just mere mortals. We're not kind of like these amazing geniuses. But I think innovation is much more than that. I think innovation is, like you said, it's actually continuous improvement. It can be the simplest things. It can be new systems, new processes, new ways of doing things. And I think when we do that, we become more confident to handle innovation rather than think it's just something for the creative genius. I think innovation is 70% process. I think it's 30% genius. But you improve systems, you can get a much and I think it's moving into innovation in a way that's not scary, who may not be comfortable with it. And I think with that as well, I think it's starting small, not investing too much, and knowing when to say no and knowing when to pull the plug. So if you do those three things, you can make things a lot easier. So for example, if you have an association that is not used to innovating or doesn't have an innovative culture, we'll just work out what is the one thing that your members really desperately need, or what is, most people have got a really good understanding of their own sectors. What's the one thing that's just a no-brainer that you can actually start with? Just start with that. Invest a small amount, just see how it goes. It's like flexing your innovation muscle. And if things start to look bad on that, pull the plug, cancel it. So you don't have to keep putting good money after bad. But when you do that, it just improves the confidence of the association to innovate, and then it gives the members a bit more confidence about it. And then the next time you try something a bit better, and you can just be a bit more robust. So I think part of it is actually just trying some stuff, and it might not be earth-shattering, not like going to the moon, but new system, new process, new product, whatever it might be. And the other one is also to make sure the culture supports it, because if the employees are not used to innovating, it's scary because there's risk. It's like, I'm not going to do this because it's scary, and I'll get told off, or my boss will get angry with me. You have to kind of like let them know that it's okay if you try and you set the standard this high and you come down. Okay, it's not the end of the world. So
it's kind of like it reminds me of that saying, like the shoot. What was it? Why not shoot for? Was it the moon? Because even if you fail, you still land among the stars, or something like that.
Exactly. And because ultimately it's going to be the people that drive the innovation for us. It's organizations don't innovate, people do. So they've got to be comfortable with a little bit of risk. I'm not talking about crazy risk, but just manage sensible risk that you control. So
I can see that. And I like the idea of incremental change. You know, I always think of Stephen Johnson's book that had to do with where innovation comes from. And it talks about the early coffee houses and how those would be places that were a breeding ground for innovation. And the reason why was not because it was groups of the same people getting together, but because it was a mingling of all kinds of different people, artists meeting with scientists, meeting with manufacturers. It was all of those people being able to mingle in the same spot and have interesting conversations where innovation happened, because it was bringing in new ideas. And I love that idea. And so I like the idea that what you're saying is, let's not think of the Steve Jobs, like, ultimate, to be innovative, you must create Apple, you know, like you must envision every household having a computer, right? Instead, think about incremental changes that can happen, or like think about having more interesting conversations more often with people who are from outside your industry, perhaps. So that's an interesting idea to me.
Yeah, although I totally agree. I think that whole thinking really helps to just engender those new ideas. And I love what you're saying about talking to people outside the industry, because those are the things that will challenge the existing thinking. So, but to be able to challenge the existing thinking, there initially has to be the mindset change behind that, to kind of go, okay, I'm open to new ideas. I'm open to letting go of the way we've done stuff before, just because that's the way we've done stuff before. So I think it's that shift from being what I would call, and I don't want to be too dualistic here, but the shift from being a traditionalist to an innovator. Tradition, I think, is really important. And it's really important to acknowledge the past, and it can be something that binds an organization in the present, but tradition is not a future strategy. So I think it's a shift of moving out of the familiar into the progressive, you know, embracing change, not resisting it, innovating, not business as usual. And you can only do that when you start to talk with people, as you said, who can challenge some ideas. And then that's strength, because it's like, if you're strong enough to challenge the ideas that you hold, I mean, that's a real positive. And that's, I think, will move stuff forward. So
I love this.
Yeah.
So when you go in and you're working with organizations and you see that they are stuck in that sort of traditional kind of mindset, I'm sure you would love to make them read your book. But if they can't do that, then what's one way that you might be able to guide them in the right direction? Like, how does that conversation go, or how does that engagement go?
Yeah, well, I think the important thing here is that no one's being judgmental, no one's being dogmatic, no one's saying, hey, this is right and this is wrong. I think we need to move out of that right-wrong scenario. It's really about, you know, what is it you want to accomplish? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Out of my ear.
Listen, I mean, let's talk about it. Like, we've had I'm using a different computer than I started with. I've been in the hospital. Oh my gosh, today has been crazy. So
it's been crazy.
Your earbud issue, very low on my priority of concerns.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that it comes back down to, you know, what do you want to accomplish? Which then comes back to what we were chatting about before, about the mission and the vision, or the objectives, or the value proposition. And I know I'm using these terms interchangeably. I understand there is a semantic difference, but, you know, I really don't mind whether you call it a mission or tweak it to a vision or have a value proposition. It's just, what do you want to do? And I think that if when organizations get clear on what they want to do, what they want to achieve, they can balance their current thinking, their current position, as to, you know, is this serving you? Is your current thinking where you want to go? If it is, great. If it isn't, then, well, maybe you want to. I'm just going to let this earbud go. You know, maybe something that you just, you know, I think it needs to be their own realization that this will help them achieve what they want to do. And I call this the art of progress, ART. And I think the first one is the awareness of disruption, or the awareness of a situation. And that's kind of step one, because it's actually quite tempting to just put it out of one's consciousness, because once you put it into your consciousness, you kind of got to do something about it. The second step is the R, which is the realization. Okay, the realization of the impact this disruption or this whatever it may be is going to have on our organization. So if you have the awareness and then the realization, and then the T of the R to the progress is transformation. Okay, what do I need to do to get from where I am to where I want to be? So then it becomes the individual then kind of buys in of his or her own accord to what they want to accomplish, because ultimately that's for me that's what we're all here for. We're all here for some purpose, I believe, and our purpose is for the organization or the association to have a purpose for members and markets, but also we have an individual purpose within that organization. And what is it that I want to accomplish within the association, whether I'm the CEO or the janitor or it doesn't really matter. We all have a role to play. So I think, get rid of all that stuff and just focus on what is it you really want. But I think the challenge there is that some people don't actually spend a lot of time deeply thinking about what it is that they want, or deeply thinking about where they really want their association to go. It's quite easy to do, kind of like, just do what we did last year and add 5%. You could do that, but things are going to change. There's disruption there. What do you really want to do?
So let me ask you about a very practical question, which is, and not just practical. So all of this is practical, but a very, I guess, tactical question, and that is when you were talking about innovation earlier, you were talking about process being 70% or more of part of innovation, and that genius was like maybe 30% or less.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at process, if I'm an association executive and I say, you know what, you're right, I need to figure out how to build this in, how to build in the art of progress and transformation into what I'm doing with my association. How often should I do this? Like, yes, there's probably this something, how we're working on it on a regular basis, but how often should, say, the executive team come together with the sheer purpose, the only purpose being to think about how their organization is moving forward?
Okay.
Is that a fair question? I mean, maybe I'm totally off base. I don't know.
No. I think it's a great question. Let me answer it let me answer it this way. I believe that many associations, certainly in Australia, their systems and processes are not necessarily aligned to their objectives. Systems and processes have kind of grown up, and there's often a compliance agenda, which is great, but I think compliance needs to be balanced with performance. So I think these systems and processes build up, and I think the signs that there are some challenges are when staff go around in circles because they're not sure who does what. Is this my job? Is this your job? Or if it's very difficult for members to engage. I've seen membership forms of 5 or 6 pages of stuff just to get someone to sign up and pay their dues. It's like, make it easy. You want the basic information first. You can populate the other stuff later. Or there are some processes that are not serving the members; they serve the organization. I think what the corporate world has done well in this regard is, there's such a pressure for streamlining and efficiency in the corporate world. They look at continuous improvement. Right. How can we make our system 5% better this year, 10% better? I don't think associations have gone through the process and administrative rigor as corporates have, because there hasn't been pressure on them to do that, because the pressure hasn't been to deliver certain results. I'm not necessarily talking financial. So I believe that some of those systems are kind of out of whack with what you want to do. Comes back to mission and vision. So if you look at your mission and vision and your objectives, okay, let's say we've got objectives to make life easier for members and increase membership by 8% this year. and be truly member serving, well, then don't give them rubbish forms and stuff to fill in. Make life really easy for them. So then your hierarchy becomes, okay, we need compliance and robust systems internally, but we have to deliver a higher standard for our members and be serving them. And you go, okay, that's where we want to get to be. Our system is here. We bridge that gap. And that will, I think, bring on the continuous improvement. So to answer your question, I would suggest, if there hasn't been any, like, have the meeting now. And it's, I mean, the process that I use is just get the whole team together. That could be, if it's a departmental issue, get the whole department together, or whoever's the state. Put up the process on the whiteboard and just go, okay, guys, here are objectives. We want to make life easier for members. We want to also make life easier for you as a team, because we want you to have a system and a process where you know what you're doing, you know what your job is, so there's clarity. We want to reduce your stress, and we want to do it by X day. So come on, let's, how do we work this through? And I've seen so many examples where, the teams in associations were quite frustrated. It's like, oh, for goodness sake, give me a decent system so I can do my job. So I think the onus is on the association to reduce the, not pressure, but reduce the difficulty of actually doing the job. If you do that, then people are going to be happier, they're going to do a better job, and they're going to come up with better ideas. So I would definitely do it. And if you've got, if everyone's working well together, no one's saying, this is not my job, it's his fault, there's no blame, and you've got a good culture in the organization, great, that may be. But if you've got that blame culture and everyone's angry with everyone else, well, it's a sign that some issues need to be dealt with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a real priority. And it's not, that's what I'm talking about, innovation, it's not hard to do. And then you get someone who's, okay. So
you say that.
Not hard to start. Everyone's going, who is this idiot from Australia?
No, but I'm like, yeah, it is. That's probably why they hire you to come in and help them. But yeah. It isn't, but it is. And when I hear you talking about streamlining, you're so right. Looking from the for-profit to a lot of our associations and nonprofits, lean startup methodology. There's a really great white paper that Guillermo del Zarada and I might be butchering his name, and Elizabeth Weaver Engel co-authored about lean startup methodology for associations. They did this, I want to say, like a year and a half ago, and they've done many presentations on it since about this particular thing. I had them on Association Chat, but I think it's fascinating because a lot of those ideas are definitely applicable to what associations can do, and yet there really is this and I agree, like, not to demonize anyone, but to say that there is a more traditional mindset where you don't see that embraced as much. I will say that I have been happy to see, having, being in the association space for a long time and starting out working for associations, I have seen in, I would say, the past few years where there are some really great stories of associations who have embraced this progress and transformation. They have embraced things like lean startup methodology, and it's made a difference. But I wish so much that your story and that the information from like the, how to apply lean startup methodology and some of these examples would be required reading or required listening for everyone in the association space, because it really is something that can change. Think about it. It can not just change that organization. It can change an entire industry and even beyond. And even beyond. So really important stuff. This isn't, it sounds like, we're aspiring to be better and motivational maybe, but it's beyond that. It's beyond it, because it is really important. It's the way that we lead our culture. It's the way that we lead our society into the future. So you're doing important work, and I'm really glad that you're on here. What I want to do right now is I want to encourage anyone who's watching on Crowdcast, on YouTube, anywhere. It's easier for me to see your comments or your questions on Crowdcast, but I know a lot of you are watching on like Facebook and YouTube. If you have questions, please, you can post them right now. We're close to the end of our time, so I want to encourage you to do that. I also want to encourage you to visit our sponsor, Fontiva. So Association Chat has a sponsor, Fontiva. They're fantastic. If you're watching on Crowdcast, you can actually click the little call to action button. It'll open up another window, and you'll be able to find out more about our sponsor. Another great thing, and this is something that I don't usually do because I forget usually, but here you go. We have a Patreon page for Association Chat, and I think we're up to 18 patrons right now who are choosing to individually support Association Chat. So if you want information about that, then you can check out ways to become a patron for Association Chat. But with that, I'm not seeing any additional questions here. What I want to do is I want to ask you a little bit about, some of your own personal ways that you continue to grow and develop. One of the big focuses that we have here, I don't know, do you say foci? A big focus for the Association Chat is always on learning. So talking about progress and transformation is a hot topic always for Association Chat. But what do you do personally to encourage your mind to grow and to learn? And how do you keep yourself on a path for innovation?
Wow, good question. I think I do that with things like my book, because that's a journey for myself as much as it is for anyone else. And there's that old adage that says that you teach what you most need to learn. So I think there's some truth in that as well. So I guess the book is kind of my journey in challenging my own weaknesses and challenges and things that I would like to improve about myself. So it kind of sets a standard for me to actually get a lot better. I think also working with different associations is a real privilege, because you get to be invited into to see their thinking and their situation, and obviously when they bring me in, they share information with me, and which obviously I keep confidential. But you learn so much more every time I meet an association executive. I learn something new as well. So it's I'm learning as much as I'm giving, if that makes sense. So this to me is part of my own self-development. I also do a similar thing on business ethics. So I talk on ethics and trust and engagement. So that's kind of a separate thing that I do. So I'm learning that as well. So I think, and I'm constant. The day I stop learning is the day that you just stop, because then that's it. So it's
Right.
So I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but internally, I do a lot of. I try and get some quiet time. I try and do some meditation, long walks by the water with my wife, and just slow stuff down, because I think that's when the creativity kicks in as well. The innovation kicks in, because as I said before, a lot of it is process, but when you put the work in, when you put the process in, things do just seem to pop into your head. It happens when I'm in the middle of a project, and I don't understand how this works. The more work you put in, sometimes you'll go to bed and you'll be thinking about something, and you'll just wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll get up really excited and I'll write stuff down. And especially when I was doing the book, I was doing this 3 or 4 times a night. For me, it was fantastic. My wife hated it. It's like, shut up, you go to sleep.
I know. My husband has to tell me to, and he did this. It was so crazy, but he's like, honey, I love you. I don't want to talk about this with you right now because I'll be processing stuff and I like want to talk about it. So Paula over here, she wrote, "Hi Paula." She says, "One thing I find that helps me learn is volunteering and participating in extracurricular activities. It's a great way to learn and other ways learn other ways of thinking." And oh my gosh, yes. And what's awesome about that is that the challenge of that, you know, when you're volunteering, you're facing you're also you're volunteering for X, you're volunteering for whatever it is, but you're also volunteering for all the problems and challenges that come along with that, which is usually like at some point you at least if you're me, you find yourself saying like, no good deed goes unpunished. You're like, you know, I volunteered and now I'm facing this thing. But there is not a time when I have volunteered and not learned something of value, because you do get back, you know, from that effort or time that you put in. So it's really amazing. And I think sometimes, you know, when you challenge yourself in those ways, those are the times when you grow the most. So
very true.
I love it. Well, one of the other questions I had for you has to do with, and this is kind of different, but you know, I am working on this project called Why Weird is Better. And my question for you, and I'm asking all the thought leaders who come on now, this question, which is, you know, when I say weird, you know, what are some of the first things that come to mind, and what is your weird? How do you, like, what is your weird?
Oh, okay. I can be weird. I love it.
It's a dangerous question.
You know? No, I love these questions. I think we're all weird. I think our weirdness is what makes us us. So, and I think there's authenticity to being weird. If we're not weird, it means we're just conforming to a narrative or a story, an image.
Right.
So weird is really good. Do you want to know my weird stuff? Oh wow, this is, you know, this is.
We should think about the way I ask that. Yeah.
I think I tend to just speak what I think, and I think that can be a virtue, but it can also be quite challenging sometimes. My wife likes it because it's kind of I do tend to just blur with the truth of what I'm thinking. It can be a bit annoying sometimes, but I quite like that. I think, you know, and I think you can challenge some social knowledge. I like to have really interesting, in-depth conversations. I'm really rubbish at chit chat. You know, I like
the superficial stuff.
Yeah,
right.
How are you? What do you do?
What do you think about the weather?
So I think I'm a bit weird like that. So some people might go, "Oh, he doesn't chit chat very much in terms of the small talk." But and I'm quite happy to share any personal information. I think when you write a book or you're a speaker, you kind of got to be open and honest and vulnerable. So I kind of quite like that about myself. But I think I've been told that I'm a bit weird, a bit quirky. I don't know. Australians are weird as well, so you know.
I have a good friend who's actually celebrating his birthday today, who is in Australia, Robert Barnes, and he was an association executive, moved into working for Aptify, and now he is working with Intuit, I guess. So So happy birthday, Robert Barnes, if you're out there listening. So we have just a little bit more time. I wanted to give you an opportunity to say any final words. When it comes to innovation and associations, what is it that you would like association executives to know?
Okay, if I could just take away one message. Okay, so for example, with my roadmap, I have a little diagram with the 6 little steps. And right in the middle, and that button just says start. Just push the button, just get started. Don't worry that you don't have all the answers. Don't look for perfection. Just get started, because the road will unfold. as you develop it and as you embrace those issues. So tackle the elephant in the room. Tackle that one thing that everyone's scared to mention, that existential threat. Or it's like, can't mention that because it's too scary. Well, it's only scary because we're not grabbing it. So just get started. Get started on the area that you're most comfortable starting on, or get started on the area that's going to have the most impact on your organization. Pick any one of those 6 and just get started. What's that quote about the journey of 1,000 steps? Take the first step. It's amazing what will happen in 6 months, in a year's time. You can transform an organization step by step. So just get started would be my suggestion.
I love it.
And I'm sure many of you are already started, so I didn't mean that this.
Don't be afraid. Don't let fear stop you. Yes. So thank you
very much,
for joining me on Association Chat today, and thank you all for joining us today on Association Chat. You can always catch new episodes of the chat every Monday on the Association Chat podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. That means if you have Alexa, you guys, you can go and say, Alexa, play Association Chat on iHeartRadio, and it will play the most recent episode. So I encourage you to do that. I want you to join us for the next live episode. Live episodes are always on Tuesday, most always, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In this case, it was a special occasion. And until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.